Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Brian Gent. I'm the Program Director for the Executive Masters in Business Administration. I am your Sprangalang or your Tommy Joseph for the afternoon. And my job really is just to facilitate the proceedings and get things going. So without any further ado, let me introduce you to our distinguished panel, whom I warmly welcome, along with you, of course, as well, our distinguished guests. So our panel, in no order of merit, of course, is Mr. Gregory Spicer, who is currently the General Manager of Finance and Business Support at Scotiabank Trinidad and Tobago Limited. He's also a member of various subcommittees of the Bankers Association of Trinidad and Tobago, and currently serves as the Director of Trinidad and Tobago Interbank Payment Systems, Infolink Services Limited, Credit Report Services Limited, and the Donruss Cooperative Society Limited. His past roles include Corporate Controller of Unilever's Caribbean business base in the Dominican Republic, and Finance and Information Management Director and Company Secretary for Unilever's Trinidad business. He has also held senior and executive management roles with Development Finance Limited, CMMB Limited, and CIBC First Caribbean in Barbados, Trinidad. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Gregory Spicer. Our next distinguished member of the panel is Mr. Ian Chinapu, who is the Executive Director at the Unit Trust Corporation. Mr. Chinapu joined the UTC after a successful stint at CIBC First Caribbean. He previously held the post of Business Head at Citigroup's Global Corporate and Investment Bank in the Bahamas, as well as Vice President and Senior Transactor in Capital Markets for the Caribbean and Central American region at Citibank International in Miami, and Vice President with responsibility for structured finance and product development while at Citibank Trinidad. Mr. Chinapu has a BSc in accounting with first-class honors from the University of the West Indies and has tutored and lectured in the Masters of Business Administration, Advanced Diploma in Costs and Institute of Management Accounting programs at this distinguished Lok Jack Business School. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Ian Chinapu. Mr. Miguel Sierra is our other distinguished guest. He is the Chief Executive Officer and Managing Director at Pan American Life Caribbean. He has more than 20 years of extensive and diverse U.S. and international finance experience. Formerly, Mr. Sierra was PLIC, that's Pan American Life Caribbean, PLIC's Vice President and Chief Financial Officer for the group's international division. Prior to joining PLIC, Mr. Sierra was the President of AM Intense, or Intense, is it, in Bogota, Colombia, where he provided leadership in the areas of insurance, reinsurance, and financial systems and project management. Previously, he was President and Chief Executive Officer of ACE Andina in the Colombia and Ecuador regions, where he was responsible for all insurance operations for ACE in Colombia and Ecuador, including property and casualty, accident and health, personal lines, and life business in excess of US $100 million in annual net written premiums. He led a team of over 250 employees in the turnaround to sustainable profit growth for the Andina region. Prior to that, Mr. Sierra acted as Senior Vice President and Chief Financial Officer for ACE's Latin American region, where he directly led in-country CFO teams in Argentina, Brazil, Chile, Colombia, Ecuador, Mexico, Miami, Peru, and Puerto Rico. Ladies and gentlemen, as you heard from his resume, the distinguished Mr. Miguel Sierra. Our final panelist, a gentleman who I've known for quite some time, I'm very honored to be in his presence, Mr. Keith King. He's the Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of First Line Securities Limited and a veteran of the Caribbean region's financial sector with over 35 years of banking and capital markets experience. Prior to forming First Line Securities, he was Group Chief Executive Officer and Managing Director of the AIC Financial Group and Executive Director, Corporate and Investment Banking at RBTT Bank, where he funded various projects throughout the Caribbean and Central America. He utilizes a strong international relationship network to provide corporate and government clients with access to capital. He performed as president of the Securities Dealers Association of Trinidad and Tobago, the representative body for local investment houses for the period 2009 to 2011, and he's a member of the Energy Committee of the Trinidad and Tobago Chamber of Industry and Commerce. Welcome, Mr. Keith King. As you can see from the quality of the panelists, you're in for a very knowledgeable and stimulating time this afternoon. And to make sure that that happens, I want to introduce you to our moderator, for whom I don't have a bio. But once you hear his name, you will see that he needs no bio. If only because a certain gentleman in the know today referred to him as the deity of finance in the Arthur Lok Jack Business School. So let me give you our moderator for the afternoon, Mr. Howard Dutton. And he will moderate this session called the Next Generation CFO, Are You on the Right Path? Before Mr. Dutton takes over to all our guests, cue cards are provided in your packages. Should you have a question to pose to the panel, just raise your hand and one of our ushers will collect it from you, and I'll get it up to the panel. So over to our panel, over to you, Mr. Dutton. Thanks.
For such a gracious introduction, I don't know what I did to deserve the title of deity of finance, but I am most grateful. My job today is rather easy. I'm here to learn, just like you. You know, for once in my last 20-something years, since I've been a lecturer, I'll sit back and enjoy this conversation. What we want to do is find out what should the CFO of the future look like, given the globalization, given increased fast-paced change in technology, given the increased regulations that come upon us, and the CLF fiasco. I'm almost certain that we will have more regulation coming on us within a very short period of time. That most probably will be accelerated by the report from the Commission on Inquiry. So without any further deliberations, let me pose some questions to this very distinguished panel. We have among us people with finance background, and I'm making a clear distinction here between finance and accounting. We have among us people with accounting backgrounds. Yeah, we have a blend of both. On the panel today, we have 2 CEOs and we have 2 CFOs, so to speak. Yeah. On my far left, I would like to just start the conversation by asking Gregory, what really do you think a CFO of the future should look like?
And that's probably starting the most complex stage.
Yes.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
And I think you've identified one of the critical things, which is, there's significant changes in the insurance market. Let me just kind of start broadly with 3 core themes that I think the CFO of the future will start addressing. And the first one is basic, and I think it hasn't changed, right? And we can broadly speak that as the governance agenda. And it's really about doing the right things, making sure you're getting them right. Because I think that's the core or the base for anything you're looking to do in the future. Leveraging from that platform, and the second area I'd speak to is, I'd call it broadly, business partnering. It's about, partnering with the business to provide solid financial advice, providing that critical central finance lens through which you're going to work. And then the third area is really about execution. It's driving the cost agenda. It's driving out the strategic program for the organization. It's putting the measures around it and really influencing the future of the organization. And I think that's the one that's really emerging the strongest, because I think, in my view, there's a trend of moving from pure execution to one of really being involved in and helping the CEO to shape that agenda and having an impact all the way across the business. So I'd kind of leave those three broad themes. And
Not a problem at all. Going on to Keith, I mean, what's your view?
Well, it seems that the CFO's role would depend on the organization that he is in. And a small organization, a growing organization, a large organization, a multinational organization would require different attributes. I was recently hearing that it's not just a matter of having different skills depending on the circumstances, but it might also be having different personalities. Because, for instance, the example that you started off the discussion with, you started us off with a base of the FICO experience. And one would want to say, in an organization such as that, what is the personality trait that one would require of a CFO? Would it be a controller type? Would it be an entrepreneurial CFO? Would it be one who is strong on an ability to say no? My little interaction with that group, because in a past life I had cause to do quite a bit of financing there, that the organization would have moved through different phases, and there would have been a particular culture of no in a previous era of the organization, and then the organization changed to a culture of yes, and so that explosive growth and the controls required may have necessitated a different type of CFO. So the end answer to you is that it depends on the organization that the CFO is in and the stage of growth or the state of the economy, what type of CFO is required. I'm not sure that I've given a full answer there.
That's okay. There's enough questions to come back and get some clarity. But I want to dovetail on one of the things you're saying, and maybe I will pose that question to Miguel. You know, I get a sense, maybe I could be wrong here, that Keith is implying that to be the CFO of the future has to be kind of industry specific. You know, maybe it's just my wrong interpretation, but do you believe that the CFO of the future has to be industry specific, or can his skills be transferable regardless of industry?
Well, I think that specialization in this world plays a role. I mean, certainly it really helps if you've been in an industry for X number of years. It really helps. But at the same time, I think that yes, you can move from industry to industry because there are certain, I should say, principles, certain ideas that they're totally, you can transfer from one to another. I mean, like in my case, I should say I started with the airline industry, then I moved into TV, then I moved into a pension fund firm, then finally I get into insurance. So, but there's certain things that are very interesting. Like you may say, what does aviation has to do with insurance? And there's a lot of things that I learned from the airline industry that has helped me in the insurance industry. Because when you talk about, for instance, reserves, believe it or not, there's some similarities on the idea of how you reserve and prepare yourself for the future. Now, I would also like to add that from industry to industry, however, for instance, the CFO, in my opinion, has to be the main, or one of the main characteristics is the CFO has to be always forward-thinking, right? I mean, and that's perhaps the main difference with when we talk about the controller or the accountant or the accounting. Accounting deals with posting transactions, what has happened. The finance leader has to always be looking beyond what's happening, what's the expectations, what should we do to confront the future. And then I think that regardless in the industry where you are, that is your obligation as a good finance leader look into the future and help the organization, be aware of the risks that are, on the environment.
Ian, your view on, and I want to get kind of controversial here because I get a sense that, and I like where the conversation is going. You're saying that the finance leader has to be future looking. Are we putting a death knell on auditors as finance leaders?
I think that bell has rung. That bell has rung. I mean, even auditing now has become so specialized that I think it'll be, I won't say impossible, but difficult for some auditors to step back and really become CFOs. I mean, in the old days, so to speak, you go through your audit firm, you become an auditor, you move to one of the clients and work your way up to the CFO there, and you know the ins and outs of that entity. And I think you still need to have a great degree of understanding about the business. But right now, it's coming back to the forward-looking part. I think and you could find exceptions, but it becomes hard for that person to really make the transition to becoming that gatekeeper of the decisions because that's what in my opinion, I'm building on I think some of what Greg said. The CFO of the future functions in two somewhat at times contradictory roles. The person is contributing to defining the strategic vision of the company as part of the executive team. But then they also have to validate and point out when those steps may be the wrong steps, because they control the metrics, they control the measurement of what defines success in profit-centered entities is what the CFO comes back and tells you about the initiative. So in many organizations, you find the CFO having joint accountability with the CEO for the strategic planning exercise of the organization. So somebody has the ideas, and the CFO needs to now distill that into what will constitute the metrics for success. And that's I think where the rubber hits the road when it comes to saying what's the future CFO to look like. It's somebody who can actually be the gatekeeper for strategic initiatives, and then validate whether those things, and be able, and oftentimes the CFO is the first person who calls for a course correction. Because, they see the numbers, and at the end of the day, will say, okay, this direction is either coming close or achieving what we intended it to achieve.
Yeah. Do you think, or maybe the question should really be, what specific part you feel the CFO should play in taking that firm forward, allowing it to survive in this period of white-hot competition? What specific role do you think the CFO should take?
Well, the CFO comes, that person's role, his or her role, is really about taking the priorities of the organization and aligning them to the shareholder value proposition, right? So at the end of the day, we're talking shareholder value. So the CFO has that accountability to the business, to the board, on saying this initiative has achieved this objective. And when you look at it in a competitive environment, when one misstep is a common term these days, when one misstep could put you behind the competition, you want to be able to get that information quickly, not 1 month, 3 months, 6 months down the road. And you also want to be able to get learnings from each of those decisions. And I think the CFO is the repository of that in a competitive environment, validating that you're doing the right things and validating so quickly, and more importantly, when you're not doing the right things, to be able to allow you to course correct quickly as an organization.
Miguel, what do you think the specific role of the CFO should be in this period where competition is white hot? And is it purely the provision of numbers, analysis, making sure that that dashboard is well populated with relevant information?
No, I don't think there should be only that. I usually tell my CFO that the way I look at it is he should be a facilitator. In what respect? He should be a person that will help make decisions or, provide information. Okay, so on one hand is, just make sure that the information that you provide is correct and accurate so that you can make intelligent decisions with the dashboard, what have you. Okay, that's one piece of that. But really, as I was saying, looking forward, it is the person that is going to help you establish the vision, of the organization. What are the environment? What are the good things that are in the economy? What are the threats? And extremely important is this component of risk assessment. The CFO should be a person that should help the organization assessing risk and making sure that the decisions that are made on the sales front, on the commercial people, lovely people, they want to produce and they want to sell and they may come with exotic ideas what to do. And the CFO is the person that it's like the gatekeeper, right? I mean, it's like, have you thought about what are the implications of this? Have you think that if you sell this product, this will create these needs? I mean, is your capital base enough to sustain that type of growth in this line of business? So the CFO, his role is a role of looking forward, but always assessing risk and helping direct the right decisions. I think that's what is critical, and that's where the true value of the CFO comes.
I want to move across to Keith and as the only non-accountant on the panel, from your perspective as a MD, as a CEO, what do you think, or what characteristics, besides characteristics, what academic qualifications would you perceive to be more important for you for a CFO? Should it be accounting? Should it be finance? Should it be something other than that?
Well, in my view, can't be a CFO unless you have the basics right. So the basics are the principles of the accounting profession. That is the base on which everything must be built. He has to get the accounts out right. He has to have the controls right. He has to have all the methods of communication and so. And on the basis of that strong foundation, then you add on the other value-added pieces that can make you a CFO. And those would be principally the finance pieces, because you were talking about the competitive environment there. And well, it's not only competition, it's the speed of competition as well. And your CFO has to be someone who is learning and clued into the environment, because if he's only looking at the figures such as he sees them, he's looking back. If he is not networking properly, hearing and learning from the competition, from suppliers, from the employees, from the different divisions, and filtering that information and bringing it to the CEO, it may well be that he gives an excellent risk assessment, but it's a risk assessment of the past and the new threats that the organization faces and the speed that these threats may be developing, he may miss. And so from my perspective, your CFO has to have strong accounting capabilities, strong risk assessment, strong communication skills, and so to be able to impart to the CEO things that he doesn't want to hear or may not want to hear, but also has to be a good networker to be able to bring information, valuable information, to the attention of the CEO and the board on a timely basis.
Yes, Gregory, so that's summarizing. No, that's what I kind of summarize what Keith is saying here. He says, yes, he's looking for a strong accountant who has embellished his qualifications over time. So he's put some finance on that, he's put some risk management on that, and again, probably put some strategy on that. Yeah? What's your view?
Yeah, and I'm exactly on the same page, right? I mean, it comes from the foundation. Let's not diminish it. I think that that foundation gives you the credibility to do everything else. You know, if you're giving a number every month, and let's face it, in these turbulent times, sometimes the message is bad news. And if the first insight that you bring to the table is bad news, a lot of people want to shoot the messenger. So the initial reaction is the number's wrong. Well, no, you have to have the credibility to say the number's right, and you have to have established with your CEO that there's one number, it's your number. Once you have the basics for that in place, the value add does come from everything else, because it's that base is a broad stepping stone, right? I mean, it gives you the base to be able to do all of the other things like the risk management, because the core principles embedded in your core training are enablers for the learning. I think you get there faster.